Before the Constitution, the United States had the Articles of Confederation. The Articles served as the first form of government, but as the years went on, it was obvious that they weren't ideal. They were eventually replaced by the Constitution that we still live by today. But why did we replace the Articles of Confederation? And what made us start from scratch and rewrite our form of government? On this episode, we'll figure out just that. I'm your host, Rachel Payton, and you're listening to the Chronicles of Time. Let's dive in to the Articles of Confederation. It was a day after a committee to write the Declaration of Independence was appointed, in the midst of the Revolutionary War, when another committee was appointed to write the Articles of Confederation. The committee would gather in 1776 with John Dickinson as chairman. He and 12 other members prepared drafts, 6 to be specific, and in November of 1777, they sent the drafts to Congress for ratification. While the articles were being drafted, Congress advised each colony to form governments for themselves. Something was in the works. The articles required unanimous consent from all 13 colonies to go into effect, and luckily for the states, the Articles of Confederation granted most power to them. Virginia was the first state to ratify the Articles in 1777, and over 3 years later, in 1781, Maryland became the final state to do so. On March 1st, 1781, the Articles of Confederation went into effect, right in the middle of the Revolutionary War. They enabled the newly formed United States to successfully beat the British. But what exactly were the Articles of Confederation, the words in which the nation would live by? Well, they featured a preamble and 13 articles. In the articles, most of the power was granted to the states instead of a central government. The colonists were almost tiptoeing when they wrote the articles, and with reason. The government they wanted to form should in no way resemble the one they fled from. The preamble, or an introductory statement, announced the states were in a perpetual union with one another. But if you read the articles, it seems as if it was every state for itself. Article 1 says, "The style of the Confederacy shall be the United States of America." Article 2 ensures each state has freedom and independence. The third has the states in a league of friendship. The fourth specified rights and citizens, and the fifth article ensured each state got only one vote in Congress, regardless of its size. The other articles discuss powers given to Congress, which wasn't much. They could really only create treaties and levy war. The 13th and final article required every single state to approve an amendment for it to be passed, and due to this, no amendment was ever ratified under the Articles of Confederation. And under the Articles, Congress truly did not have any meaningful power. They couldn't tax or raise a national army. Not being able to tax the states and citizens meant no revenue would be raised to pay off the national debt. And at this point, the United States owed $101 million to war costs and $11 million to France and the Netherlands. Congress could ask states for money, but often states would blow them off or just not pay completely. From 1781 to 1787, only $1.5 million out of $10 million Congress asked for was received from the states. Ultimately, the Articles created a weak central government. States had the power to tax, and this ended up proving disastrous when a rebellion led by Daniel Shays and many farmers who were veterans of the Revolutionary War happened. The Shays weren't able to keep up with the taxes imposed by them by the state and had to foreclose on their land. And due to Congress not being able to raise its own army, a privately financed army had to take down the insurrection. The Articles were suffering and had its own share of critics. George Washington wrote Governor of Virginia, Benjamin Harrison, who also happens to be the father of President William Henry Harrison, criticizing the Articles of Confederation. He said that the government was a half-starved, limping government that appears to be always moving upon crutches and tottering at every step. And John Jay would write Washington that our affairs seem to lead to some crisis. I am uneasy and apprehensive, more so than during the war. It was time for things to change, or this newfound nation would crumble upon itself. And Shay's rebellion made it abundantly clear of that. On September 11th, 1786, the Annapolis Convention was held to address trade issues, but eventually became much more than that. The issues were so big, the delegates decided to reconvene in Philadelphia. The new convention would be the infamous Constitutional Convention that would redefine our country. The convention lasted from May to September and recreated our government rather than expand on the Articles of Confederation. Key players in the convention were people like Alexander Hamilton, George Washington, and James Madison. A new constitution was written in response to how weak the Articles were. One key difference in the Articles and the new Constitution was the extremely necessary creation of our three branches of government: the judicial, executive, and legislative. This took power and divided it out, giving us a stronger central government that we desperately needed. But enough about the Constitution. That's for another episode. As good as the intentions were, the Articles of Confederation just weren't a realistic form of government. They acted as a prototype, more to say. Only in effect for a mere 8 years, they served as our first ever form of government. And although ineffective, we must re-examine the Articles to see where they went wrong. Thank you so much for listening to my episode over the Articles of Confederation. It's always a pleasure making these episodes for you guys. If you like this episode, tell everyone you know. Also, leave me a rating and review. Don't forget merch is available. I have mugs and t-shirts for sale. Pictures are on my social media. If you want to talk history or have any episode suggestions, email me at thechroniclesoftimepodcast@gmail.com. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content and follow my social media pages for updates. I'm your host, Rachel Payton. Thank you so much for listening to The Chronicles of Time.